I love deadlines. I like the whooshing sound they make as they rush past. So, Big Finish review. This one's actually a Patreon commission one because while I have been doing Big Finish reviews regularly, I'm more or less sort of jumping around. Occasionally I will have a vote from the various people on Patreon to various people. They're my patronizers. Ugh. I know them by name. I stick them in the credits at the end. That's one of the benefits. How did I turn this into a plug? Anyways, so normally I just give a list of Big Finish things that I have already gotten my hands on, either because they were on sale or they were gifted to me, and I let them choose. Now, I had a patronizer who had a very specific story he wanted me to check out, and he actually commissioned a review. And so I have now listened to Doctor Who Unbound Deadline. And this is so weird. It's written by Robert Shearman, who has written my favorite Big Finish stuff so far. Quite easily, in fact. He wrote Jubilee. He wrote Holy Terror, which is still my favorite. He wrote Chimes of Midnight. Like, he's really, really good at writing Doctor Who and writing Doctor Who for audio. Now, Doctor Who Unbound is a bit of a weird beast. So it's essentially a series of hour-long what-if stories, completely removed from Doctor Who continuity, and in fact with actors who have never played the Doctor before taking on whatever iteration of the Doctor the various writers came up with. Now, what Robert Shearman decided to tackle was, what if Doctor Who never actually got produced as a TV series? Like, it was conceived, it was worked on, never actually went to air. That's his what if. So this story largely centers around a aging writer, a man named Martin, who is in a nursing home. And he is voiced by the incomparable Derek Jacobi, who I've already had the joy of listening to as the War Master in the War Master Series 1. I think Series 2 is out now. I gotta get my hands on it. He's so friggin' good. But, so he's playing this television writer who was commissioned by Sidney Newman and Verity Lambert, although he mostly worked with Sidney Newman, and this is all fictionalized, to write the scripts for what was going to be Doctor Who. But the show never moved forward. Early bits were scripted, he was revising, he was drafting. It never moved forward. He got moved to other work at the BBC. He wrote a bunch of episodes for a cop drama, like a 60s cop drama, that he thinks incredibly little of, but has a pretty sizable fan base, and it's by far the thing he's best known for, despite the fact of being an award-winning playwright before starting to write for the BBC. So what this story focuses on is an aging writer who believes himself better than the work he is known for, doesn't have a lot of regard for the people who liked the show that he is best known for writing for, has a very broken history with his family, is suffering from some degree of dementia, and failing mental faculties, and who can't get the ideas of Doctor Who completely out of his head. And to try and explain how all this plays out is incredibly difficult. But not because it's hard to follow. Because Robert Shearman really knows this medium. He knows how to transition stuff seamlessly from one situation into another, transitioning with the same voice actors, now actually doing something different just through the audio medium. And what I mean by that is Derek Jacobi's character, he will he'll be talking with this head nurse at maybe not the head nurse, but the one who works with him most often at this nursing home. He's talking about his writing, and she leaves, and he's starting to think about revisions and, how he can alter and how to make the story better. And suddenly he himself is the doctor talking to Susan, not about writing the story, but being the doctor and having adventures with her. And names keep popping up. The nurse, who is Barbara Wright, Ian Chesterton, was a man that she was engaged to at one point. These names keep popping up. We meet Martin's own son, Philip, who hates him, and the ins and outs of what we learn about why that is, both in terms of what Martin did that made his son hate him, but also the ways in which Martin is projecting other things about his life and faulting his father for how things have turned out for him. And that's incredibly well balanced, because that could easily have gone either way. That could have read either as he was that he was just too harsh on this guy, or that Martin was unredeemably a jerk, or it could have read as this adult son just refusing to move on and blaming his dad for everything. But it balances everything really well, and everybody here is so human. And it's heartbreaking at times for a variety of reasons. So first off, peek behind the curtain. I've mentioned this before because it's come up intermittently when I've talked about reviews that touch on these kinds of things. My grandfather had dementia towards the end of his life. So things that are able to respectfully, but also realistically and properly touch on that kind of thing, that degradation of a mind, and the frustration of both being the person whose mind is degrading and being someone trying to interact with someone who has that going on. When that's captured well, I end up finding it very stirring of a lot of stuff. And this did that, which to me says it did it well. And in terms of the broken history and the broken relationships that Martin has with his son, and how he is desperate to try and have a relationship with his grandson, who he actually has yet to even meet, and he often doesn't remember he has. There's a line that he has, basically telling Philip, I screwed that up. It's too late. Let me meet my grandson. I haven't ruined that yet. Oh, there's so much in that. There's so much blind, foolish hope in that. There is so much unresolved guilt in that. There is so much. But even while it's tackling these things about family and dementia and damage done from parent to child, it's also tackling the nature of the artist and their thoughts about their own art. How they feel about what is or isn't liked about what they did, what they wish they were remembered for, the sacrifices they made for their art. And this does something that I really, really appreciated, because so often when you see or hear or read a story about an artist basically sacrificing or torpedoing their personal or home or family life for the sake of their art, even in stories where that's not portrayed as a good thing, there's still usually an amazing piece of art that results from that. What happens to Martin is he abandons his, this is backstory. He abandoned his wife and his child in the belief that he was sacrificing them to make great art. And he just never did. He worked, but he never made that great art. So his sacrifice was for nothing. But he was so arrogant and so self-certain that he was going to be amazing that he thought so little of being around and supporting and offering his energies to people who loved him and needed him. Because he never doubted his own genius. And the moments of Jacoby having these moments of revelation, of looking back and realizing who he is, the kind of man that he is, and has been and continues to be, they're often brief because the guy's mind is so fractured. He doesn't hold on to these thoughts for very long, but when they hit, you can hear it in the voice and the vocal performance. It is tragic in a low-key way. This is familial and artistic melancholy made manifest. And for all the things I'm talking about, this is all done in an hour. In 1 hour, you have an exploration of the arrogance of artists, the degradation of a mind, the shattering of a family, the retreat into art as an escape from whatever doesn't work, the clinging to the piece that never got finished. All of that touched on like none of it's vestigial, all of it interwoven, interlocked, and delivering a complete experience in an hour. Like I'm at this point, I'm prepared to lump Robert Shearman in with Peter S. Beagle and just be like, this is not fair. You're too good at this. It's like, oh, it's discouraging to even think of, boy, I wonder if I could write something like that. Like, no, I couldn't. This is ridiculous how friggin' good this is. That's not fair. No one's supposed to be this good. It's the kind of good that like, as someone with artistic ambitions, it actually makes me angry. It's not a traditional Doctor Who story by any means. It's not even what you would normally think of as a what-if story, because it's not even about Doctor Who as a character. It's about Doctor Who as a piece of art. Kind of. Like, that's in there, but it's ultimately about all these other things I mentioned, and it is such a complete experience. It's not my favorite piece from me. I think that's still Holy Terror. It's going to take a lot to knock Holy Terror off that top spot. Because, I mean, amongst other things, Holy Terror still has my all-time favorite Doctor Who quote. Which, hang on. Got sent this. So, it doesn't matter to whom the cruelty is directed. The cruelty itself is wrong. And that's the Holy Terror, and I have a hard time thinking anything's ever going to top that. But, man, Robert Shearman, gah! Stop being so good. Except don't, because I want more. That's Doctor Who Unbound. Deadline. Have you heard it? What did you think of it? Have you heard any other entries in the Unbound? Because this is the only one I've listened to so far. What are your thoughts on any of this? Do you have a favorite piece from Robert Shearman? What's your favorite Big Finish? Does what I just described sound like the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard of? Whatever your thoughts are. Drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. A whole bunch of stuff to do down there as well, because buttons, links, likes are a big help. Also subscribe. That helps too. Support me on Patreon. That helps even more. But there's other links to check out below. Give them a click or don't. You don't have to, because at the end of the day, you're the council. I'm just running the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned.